When cannabis is smoked, it's inhaled into the lungs, and within seconds it's absorbed into the bloodstream and carried to the brain.
The main way that cannabis is consumed in Australia is through smoking. It's usually used through a bong, which is like a water pipe, or otherwise through a cigarette, which is often referred to as a joint. If you smoke it, the onset of effects is pretty fast. So usually by the time someone's finished a joint, they will start to feel the effects of being stoned or high. The peak onset of effects through smoking is the first 30 minutes, and usually by 4 to 5 hours, they're feeling no longer stoned again. Another way people consume cannabis is that they eat it. So they might bake it in a cake or a cookie or a brownie. What we find when cannabis is ingested or eaten, it can take, depending on people's metabolism, 60 to up to 90 minutes before it takes effect. Some people get impatient because they expect it to come on as quickly as when you smoke it, and so they'll have another bit of cannabis. If they're suffering from any form of anxiety or paranoia, having suddenly 2 doses on board and having a very long effect can be quite a scary thing for them. It's important to understand that cannabis contains 3 times more tar and 5 times more carbon monoxide than a standard cigarette. So if we're talking about lung damage, 1 joint or 1 bong is the equivalent to about 3 to 5 cigarettes. One of the respiratory harms associated with cannabis use is that many people don't realise that cannabis actually burns hotter on the throat and on the mouth. The other problem is that people tend to inhale cannabis deeper into their lungs, and they hold it in up to 4 times longer than they would a cigarette. The data that we have on cannabis use in Australia suggests that approximately 2/3 of all cannabis users in Australia mix tobacco with it. Tobacco is often mixed with cannabis to make it go further, because cannabis is fairly expensive, but it also burns better. Well, that's certainly perception of cannabis users. One of the problems relating to mixing tobacco and cannabis together is that nicotine is the most addictive drug, and a lot of people actually end up becoming dependent on the nicotine. One of the biggest harms associated with cannabis use in Australia, certainly long-term users, seem to suffer from increased sputum, inflammation of the airways, emphysema and bronchial problems relating to their cannabis use, and that's primarily because the drug is smoked.
Some people believe smoking cannabis through a bong is safer than smoking joints. Research has shown that smoking bongs does not reduce exposure to tar and carbon monoxide, nor the risks posed by deeper inhalation. Furthermore, using a plastic bong with hose and/or aluminium foil is particularly dangerous because people will also inhale all the byproducts and petrochemicals in the plastic, released through the heating and burning of the cannabis in plastic. Even vaporizers, often discussed as one of the safer ways of using cannabis, expose users to potentially toxic levels of ammonia. This is particularly true for those exposed to side stream vapors, with the potential for long-lasting neurobehavioral effects. There are a number of drug tests that can detect cannabis use. The window of time where cannabis can be detected in urine varies between individuals and between tests on the same individual, ranging from several days in infrequent users to months in frequent users. It may also vary with other factors such as drug dose, route of administration, individual rates of metabolism and excretion, and the method of analysis.
Cannabis contains THC, comes in lots of different strains, and it's illegal.
Cannabis is illegal. Cannabis is natural, and cannabis has been used for hundreds of years for medicinal purposes.